Good morning and welcome to City Hall on this frigid morning. This morning, our invocation will be brought to us by the Reverend Chris Ladisaw with the Dharma Center of Oklahoma. And following that, I'd like to ask Councilman David Greenwell if he'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Thank you for this opportunity to give the invocation this morning. As an Ekayana Buddhist, I give homage to the Eternal Buddha, the guiding spirits of Oklahoma, and to all the ancestors who dedicated their lives to this state. I ask that your session be blessed by them, guided towards a fruitful and meaningful conclusion for the sake of positive progress in our society and happiness for all its citizens. I sincerely offer my prayer with you, acknowledging that all spiritual traditions are ways to enlightenment. May every nation find balance and progress together, embrace diversity, while understanding our interconnectedness to all. Let us cultivate great harmony for future generations. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. See if that's working. There we go. This morning we have two resolutions. Recognizing our Teachers of the Month. We have a program that we started a couple of months ago in partnership with the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City and the Public Schools Foundation for the Oklahoma City Public Schools. And today we're recognizing two teachers, both our Teacher of the Month for November and our Teacher of the Month for December. So I'd like to ask the clerk if she would please to read our first resolution. And I'd like to ask, who's first?
Kathy Raber.
Kathy Raber. Kathy, would you please come forward while the clerk reads this and we can recognize your efforts.
Whereas Kathy Raber has been named Teacher of the Month by the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City for November 2011. Kathy teaches 7th grade reading and writing at Kip Reach College Preparatory School. And whereas Kathy Raber has been honored as one of 10 teachers nationwide to receive the 2011 Harriet Ball Excellence in Teaching Award. Whereas Kathy Raber's life experiences, including the struggle to recover from a traumatic brain injury while in high school and going on to be the first in her family to graduate from college, have made her an empathetic and compassionate educator. Whereas Kathy Raber meets with her students after school on Saturday mornings and in the summer to ensure that they master new skills. Whereas Kathy Raber furthers the teaching profession by frequently leading professional development and serving as a mentor for new teachers. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby recognize and commend Kathy Raber on her selection as November 2011 Teacher of the Month by the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City.
Alrighty. Is there a motion? Do we have a second? Great. Cast your votes. This is the tense part. And look at that. Passed unanimously. So congratulations, Kathy. The KIPP school is really an amazing place. I've had a chance with your principal, Tracy McDaniel, to visit the school and meet with some of the students, and it really is a wonderful place. I hope you have a couple of words you'd like to say.
I'd love to say something. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you so much to the foundation, and do you want me to turn that way or this way? Thank you so much to the foundation and to the Oklahoma City Rotary for this honor. Thank you for taking your time out of your schedule to recognize teachers in Oklahoma City, one of the best places to teach. It means a lot to us to be recognized. Also, a special thank you to Skip Kelly, our city council member. Thank you so much. And Tracy McDaniel, our school leader. Marianne Stevens, our chief academic officer. Our parents and our great kids who give up their Saturdays and holidays and to work with us and to become better. Lastly, thank you to Reed Downey, our former board chair, for nominating me for this award. I feel blessed and incredibly grateful. Thank you so much.
Kathy, again, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations. And now I'd like to ask Marlene White if she would please come forward while the clerk reads the resolution in her honor.
Whereas Marlene White has been named Teacher of the Month by the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City for December 2011. Whereas Marlene White teaches pre-kindergarten at Rockwood Elementary. Whereas Marlene White has been honored as the Rockwood Elementary 2010 to 2011 Building Teacher of the Year and as a finalist for Oklahoma City Public Schools 2011 to 2012 District Teacher of the Year. Whereas Marlene White studies the academic and social needs of her students and addresses each one's unique needs. And whereas Marlene White aggressively pursues relationships with the parents of her students and seeks to involve them in their child's education. Whereas Marlene White conducts herself as a professional and frequently pursues training to improve her teaching skills and classroom environment. Whereas Marlene White is a caring and compassionate teacher who ensures that her students develop a love of learning and the skills they need to be successful throughout their lives. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby recognize and commend Marlene White on her selection as December 2011 Teacher of the Month by the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City.
Would you please cast your votes? And again, it passes unanimously. Congratulations, Marlene. You must have the best job in Oklahoma City teaching pre-kindergarten. How much fun that is. And, you know, Oklahoma City is recognized nationally for its early childhood education programming and our opportunity to help young people get a great start in school. So thank you very much. Would you like to say anything?
I would.
That's okay. Don't worry. Want me to hold this for you?
Thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to be here. Thank you to everybody who's part of the nomination process. Thank you to you, Mike Sawyer, for the commitment and dedication you have to improving our community. Thank you for my colleagues and my mentors who have always supported and given me insight and helped me in the middle of the night. Thank you to my students and my families who have always supported me and have been my extended family away from home. Thank you to the Rotary Club and the Foundation who have provided this opportunity for us teachers in the community. And more than anything, thank you to all who are part of a community who really believes in the power and the ownership, who take it seriously to improve and help each student to be successful. So I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, and congratulations again to everybody. This is such a wonderful program, and I know that I joined all of my colleagues here on the Horseshoe who are so inspired to recognize these teachers on a regular basis. We support so strongly everything that's done in the classroom, and so it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to do that here on Tuesdays. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll begin with item number 4, which is the Journal of Council Proceedings. Item A is to receive the journal, and item B to approve the journal for November 22nd of 2011. All in favor, please cast your votes. Whoops, sorry. And it passes unanimously. Get the swing of this one of these days. Moving on to item 5 is a request for uncontested continuances.
Madam Vice Mayor, there's a couple this morning of a couple of unsecured buildings that we need to strike on page 6 under item 8E1. On page 6 again, item E, 2200 Northwest 35th Street. We ask that that be stricken. We need to re-notify. In item G, 1241 Northeast 44th. We ask that that be stricken. Again, we need to re-notify.
And is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good, all righty. We'll then go ahead and recess the council meeting and convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. We have one item. Second. Cast your votes. That passes unanimously. We'll now adjourn the OCMFA and reconvene the council meeting with our consent docket. Second, and are there individual considerations? Oh, okay. We do have a citizen. Oh, that's 8. Not yet. We have one coming up. We're on item 6, which is the consent docket. Do we have any items for individual consideration? Hearing none, are we ready to vote? Okay, everybody cast your votes? And the consent docket passes unanimously. We have no items on the concurrence docket today, so we move on to item 8, which are items requiring separate votes. Many of these are zoning cases, and item 8A is an ordinance on final hearing. It's an ABC 1 restaurant district overlay in the C3 Community Commercial District at 2145 Southwest 104th Street in Ward 5. David?
Yes, is there anyone here to protest against this item? We've not received any protests, and it's been recommended by the Planning Commission. I would move for approval.
Cast your votes, please. And that item passes unanimously. Item 8A2 and 8A3 are both cases that are in Ward 6. These are transitional single-family residential district to R2 medium-low density residential district. Both of these are projects of City Care. These are wonderful programs, and I am very much in favor of these.
Move item 2.
I have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote on item A2. Thank you. Passes unanimously. And item A3? Thank you. And that passes unanimously. Item 8A4 is an item at 920 Northwest 58th Street, a request to change the zoning from R1 single-family residential to O2 General Office District. And Ed, that would be in Ward 2. No one signed up for that. Did I miss that? Okay. Okay. And that item passes unanimously. Item 8A5 is at SPUD, address 1114 Northwest 58th Street. The request is from R1 Single Family Residential and a SPUD Simplified Plan Unit Development to SPUD 663, which is a Simplified Plan Unit Development District in Ward 2.
Mayor, members of council, Dennis Fox and Tim Johnson, we're here on behalf of the several cases that Chesapeake has today. In regard to this case, there was a commitment made to the neighborhood that if we were able to acquire the remaining houses, we would come in and provide zoning that was consistent with what their desires were to provide a buffer so there would be a clear line of demarcation for the residential and the commercial, and that's what you see happening here. We have met with Rob Littlefield and the other neighbors, and they've indicated they're supporting. So we're here to answer any questions if you have them.
So, and you'll be meeting with Rob and the neighborhood over the next, to work on the traffic issue that was brought up last week?
Yes. Dr. Shadid, we have talked to staff, and staff is in the process of setting up a meeting, because it'll not only be the neighborhood and us, but it'll be Bill Shadid, it'll be the bank and Sonic and some other entities that will be involved. So the J.J. Chambliss is setting up that meeting.
What was the last name?
J.J. Chambliss with the city is setting up that meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me, I mean, what do you have a feel, excuse me, for the timing?
We hope to meet next week if possible. I've called a couple of the business owners, and sooner is better for them rather than later on the traffic.
Good, thank you, because it's going to be able to come to council soon
Yes.
for final approval or whatever. And I just want to make sure that meeting is prior to that time, so that issue is resolved.
Yes, sir.
Move for vote.
Sorry about that. Item 8A6, at 4800 Northwest 23rd Street, request to convert from PUD 1401 to an SPUD 634, and this is in Ward 3. Larry?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Tim Johnson, if you come forward and just briefly tell the council what your applicant is proposing here.
Yes, sir. Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates on behalf of the applicant. This is a little infill commercial project. The property that we're utilizing is for Family Dollar Store, and the size of their building is a little deeper than the commercial zoning was on the property, so we've come back in and rezoned into a SPUD to allow for a deeper commercial depth from 23rd Street south. And we've been working with the staff on all the requirements for the building permits in, so they're anxious to get going. So, I'd be happy to answer any other questions. We would ask if we could get the emergency on this. They would like to close it before the end of the year.
Okay. How about signage? Just tell the council what you agreed to for signage.
We did agree to lower the, there was already a permitted pole sign in this site, on this location. When the Planning Commission objected, we did agree to a monument sign, and we'll stand by that. They wanted a pole sign, which is their standard sign, but rather than argue about it, they wanted to move forward because they're anxious to get the store in.
Thank you, sir. The Family Dollar, if you've seen them around town, the new construction on the Family Dollar are quite attractive, and it'll be an asset to this particular area. We've got a streetscape project on 23rd Street to revitalize Windsor Hills Shopping Center right across the street, so this should be a nice parcel for that. Unless the council has any questions, I'd like to move for approval.
Second.
Cast your votes, and the item passes unanimously.
And then I'd like to make a motion for the emergency.
Second. Cast your votes on the emergency. Item passes unanimously. Thank you. Item A7, 816 Northwest 59th Street, from R1 Single Family to SPUD 635. And this again is in Ward 2, Councilman Shadid.
Just so I know, has anybody signed up on this A7 or on B3? Okay. Do you have anything to add? This is similar to our previous. I move.
Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. 8A8, 7701 South Douglas Avenue, from C3 Community Commercial District to SPUD 636. This is in Ward 5.
Yes, do we have any citizens here to speak on this project? I don't believe we've received any comments on this, so I would recommend approval.
Everybody cast your votes? And the item passes unanimously. Moving on to 8B, an ordinance on final hearing, closing Cross Point Drive, which is part of Cross Point Addition, south of Southeast 59th Street and east of Eastern Avenue. This is in Ward 4. Pete.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition?
Yes, there is a citizen here to speak on this.
Okay, why don't we let her speak first?
She has a hearing problem, so I don't know how we're gonna, I just met her, and I went, but my name is Alan Thompson, but anyway, she has a hearing difficulty, so,
Was it time for me to talk?
We have a hearing device that we can get for,
Thank you.
if we can hang on for just a second.
all right, okay. But
Oh, while we're waiting, then why don't we let the applicant go ahead and present then?
Ladies and gentlemen, council, I'm Robert Thompson here on behalf of the applicant. This street, you'll note from the map, that goes south from Southeast 59th Street until it terminates at the fence line of what is now the Southeast landfill. Over a period of time, the Southeast landfill has acquired all of the property on either side of this street. In fact, the last few years, the street has been used only for access to the trailer park. That's that drawing you see up there where it shows several mobile homes, all of which are gone now. The mobile home park, the last residents have moved out. The landfill has acquired that property. And immediately east of the street, you'll see that there's three little cul-de-sacs. Those streets were previously closed by this council about 3 years ago and is part of the Southeast landfill. There are no properties that abut this property except for that property owned by the Southeast landfill. Ms. Roberts, who is a neighbor, she lives 425 feet to the east. Her property fronts on Southeast 59th Street. She spoke at the Planning Commission against this and says that she needs this street for access to her property. I think there's some confusion because access to her property is only from Southeast 59th Street. Like I said, she's 425 feet, her closest property line from this property. Previously, you'll see on the right-hand side of that picture, to my right-hand side, is what was Daisy Lane. Now that was only about 100 feet from her property, but that was closed about 3 years ago. And at this point, no one is affected by this street except my landfill. In fact, I think that once we close this street, and then of course it'd take the district court to finally close it, permanently close it, but we can put a gate up there by 59th Street and keep people from driving down in there that really don't belong. We've had problems, and this is shocking to me, we had problems with people trying to break into a landfill. I don't know what they hope to expect when they do, but they go in and they vandalize and they mess with equipment and they carry things off. And in fact, people could access this street and then gain rear access if they're willing to walk the 425 feet to Ms. Roberts' property. So I think it'll be a benefit, Ms. Roberts, if this street is closed, but we respectfully request that you allow us to close this street by ordinance, and then we will proceed with district court to get a permanent closing.
Thank you. May we hear from Ms. Roberts, please? And Ms. Roberts, we'll need your name and address for the record.
Oh, okay. My name is Lucille Roberts. I live at 2550 Southeast 59th, and they have closed one road on the east side of me, and I came and I fought that. But my lawyer came and sold me out. When the judge asked him what he thought about it, he told him he didn't know nothing. I gave him $6,000 to represent me. Okay, I lost that. Then they came back and bought out the trailer park, and there was that road on the other side of me, on the west side of me. From the first one, they closed the back of me too, which wasn't even in the deal. It was supposed to close the road, but not the one in the back of me. They closed both of them, and nobody stopped them. And now they want to close on the west side of me, which means that I have no access to my oil well. That is what my reservoir is. I got oil on that land. I have to have a strong road for a truck to go in there and pick up the oil. They also have crossed my field. They have put pipes all the way across. I've been to court for that. and the judge let them get away with it. There's pipes all the way across, so I can't build another road to go across them pipe. It's too soft. A big, heavy oil truck will not be able to cross over my field. That means both sides of me is closed up, and in the middle, my field is closed up with pipes going across.
May I ask a question? Is there an operating oil well on this property?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And nobody has been using this road other than to get to the landfill?
They couldn't use it without trespassing across 400 feet of the landfill's property.
Okay.
If I could address just a moment the court issue. Unfortunately, Ms. Roberts is a little bit confused. There was a court case about 6 years ago where Ms. Roberts filed a suit against the landfill and against the oil company that's immediately to the east over at the corner of 59th Street and Bryant. And the allegation in that suit was that somehow we had appropriated or stolen her minerals. And the district court, and she did have a lawyer that represented her, he made his arguments, and Judge Gurich dismissed the lawsuit and, in fact, has granted the landfill an attorney's fees judgment in that case, which we have not and will never try to collect. And we're not interested in collecting money from Ms. Roberts. She's just confused when she thinks that this road would provide access to the back of her property. There's no legal way it could. She does have access and several feet of frontage on Southeast 59th Street that would provide any access. She does strongly believe that she has an oil field available for drilling on her property, and she has resisted efforts to sell to my client. We have made offers substantially above market value, and we've agreed to take a surface deed only and let her keep her minerals. But there's just some confusion that if she keeps this property, she's going to be able to develop oil wells, and that somehow this street would affect it, and it cannot legally ever affect anything she does on her property.
Okay. Maybe we should hear from staff with regard to this matter.
Well, as Mr. Thompson said, Ms. Roberts' property lies 400 feet east of Cross Point Drive, and she has no access to the street. It doesn't abut her property at any point, so closing the street would not have any effect on her property.
Council, any questions?
Just one, Your Honor. If this street's closed, how do people get access to the trailer park?
The trailer park is closed.
It's
100% vacant at this point.
And not going to be, there's nothing going to go back in there?
No, in fact, that's, all the improvements to that are being removed. It'll just be an empty field available for future expansion of soil borrowed to support the landfill at some future date.
Since you all control or own that property then?
100%.
Anybody have any further questions?
How much more you said from the first court case, what did you achieve in reference to the end results of Forrest acquiring property that was part of her land?
It wasn't about title to her land. She actually filed the lawsuit and alleged that the oil company to the east of her and that our landfill had somehow, to quote, stolen her minerals. And it's something that legally couldn't be accomplished, and it was just a mistake. The court recognized that and dismissed her lawsuit.
Ms. Roberts, did you have something to say?
I guess
Go ahead, Steve.
I was just concerned about her statement that there were trucks that had to have ingress and egress to her property for purposes of extracting oil.
Yeah, there is no oil to extract at this point. In fact, our records indicate that she doesn't even own the minerals, but she believes she does. And we've offered to purchase the property. There never was a street behind her property that was closed. There just wasn't a street too close. The only streets that run north and south, and that was Daisy Lane, which is in the upper right-hand corner of that picture, and then Cross Point Drive, neither of which abutted on her property. So never were these streets available to support her property.
Yes, it was.
Her total and only access is from Southeast 59th Street. And she does have several feet of frontage on 59th Street.
Neither of these especially this street, has never been used for oil production. I mean, the oil production back in that quarter section goes back to the 30s. The discovery well for the Oklahoma City oil field is right in that general, it's within, just across the street to the north of there. And that discovery well is in the early 30s. So the minerals have been severed. In fact, I have a client that owns some of them north of 59th Street, and they've been severed since the 30s. So there's no, the surface owners, no surface owner that I know of owns any minerals in that, within probably a 3 or 4 mile radius of that discovery well, because they've, I'm going to say it again, they've been severed 40, 60, 70, 80 years now almost, so they've been in production. So the road that we're closing was a road built by a trailer park to access a trailer park, and that's all it's ever been used for. It went directly south from 59th Street into a trailer park to a little headquarters building for a trailer park, and then branched out for all these where the mobile homes were. That's the street they're trying to close, and they obviously, for obviously good reasons, they want to close it. I'm going to move approval of the ordinance.
We have a second? Second? Everybody ready to cast your votes? Ms. Roberts, did you want to say something else?
Well, what he's saying, there was never a road when I moved there, no place. I sold, well, me and my partner sold part of the front of our acres for them to build a 4-lane highway to Tinker Air Force Base. It was no road nowhere when I moved there. It was one little dirt thing, you couldn't even pass each other. There was no road in the front, the side, or the back.
She's referring to Southeast 59th Street, which has been widened.
There was nothing paved. It was all dirt. So he can't say that there was no road because there wasn't any road for nobody. I moved there I've been there about 30 years, and it was nothing up there but a jungle. I worked 18 hours 20-some years to try to clean that place up. There was trees had been down since land rush day. Nobody wanted that until I cleaned it up. After I worked 18 hours and about 20 years cleaning that place up so that the oil could breathe. The oil couldn't breathe. That's why nobody knew it was there. When I cleaned it up, you could see the dirt start rising up. And once the dirt started rising up, they knew it was something doing that. So what they did, they came and offered me $500 for a bucket of dirt. I wouldn't sell them the dirt because I figured anytime somebody offers you $500 for a bucket of dirt, it must be something underneath that ground.
Okay, Ms. Roberts, I don't believe...
I never would sell.
Okay, I don't believe this has anything to do with the issue that we're here to talk about today, which is closing this particular street. We have a motion and a second. Everybody ready to cast your votes? The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Is there a need for an emergency?
No.
All right.
Thank
you very much. Thank you for coming down, Ms. Roberts.
Wait a minute, I can't hear this.
Thank you very much for coming down. The motion has passed. Moving on to item 8B2, which is an ordinance on final hearing, closing a portion of the platted drainage common area and utility easement in Featherstone Addition. This is in Ward 5.
Yes, Your Honor. Is there anyone here to speak on this matter? It's been recommended by the Planning Commission, so I would move for approval.
Second. Cast your votes. Item passes unanimously.
Your Honor, I believe there may be an emergency item on this one that I would move for. Second.
Okay. We're voting on the emergency on item 8B2, and the item passes unanimously. Item 8B3 is an ordinance on final hearing, closing a portion of Northwest 60th Street, Northwest 61st, and North Lee Avenue in the amended plat of North Oklahoma City Addition. This is in Ward 2, Councilman Shadid.
Move for vote, please.
Second. We've got a motion and a second, and the item passes unanimously. Item 8 B4 is an ordinance on final hearing, closing a portion of a platted drainage and utility easement at 9704 Trafalgar Drive. This is also in Ward 5, Councilman.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Yes, ma'am.
There's been no contest. We're just putting an addition on the house. That's basically it. Is it possible to get an emergency closure so we don't have to go to district court on this one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we need to vote on the ordinance to begin with, please.
Yes, ma'am. I would move for approval.
Second, already, cast your votes. Item passes unanimously.
And then on the emergency, I'd recommend approval for the emergency.
Second, we have a motion and a second, cast your votes, and the item passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Diana Wall says hello. Alrighty, we're now on to item 8C, which is an ordinance on final hearing. This is a special permit to erect a 125-foot monopole telecommunications tower in the C4 General Commercial and I-2 Moderate Industrial District at 4416 Southwest 3rd Street. Councilman McAtee, this is in Ward 3.
Yes, there were no protests at the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission approved this. Unless the council has some questions, I move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Motion passes unanimously.
I'll move the emergency.
Second. Voting on the emergency, and the item passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 8D, 1 and 2. 1 is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. There are 3 items on here. And item 2 is a resolution declaring the structures as dilapidated. Is there anyone here to speak on any of these items? Motion and a second. Cast your votes. And the motion passes unanimously. Item 8E1 is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. Do we have any citizens here wanting to speak on unsecured structures? Thank you. Cast your votes. And that item passes unanimously. Item 8F1 is a resolution approving a salary continuation. I believe it meets all the criteria set forth in our policies. Cast your votes. Item passes unanimously. And item 8G, I understand we do need executive session on this item.
Yes, ma'am.
Second, cast your votes. And item 8G is moved to executive session. Item 9 are items from council. Gary, would you like to begin today? Councilman Shadid.
I just want to say thanks to Gary Cox and multiple staff from the City County Health Department, Terry White, the Commissioner on Mental Health and Substance Abuse, and also Terry Klein from the State Department of Health, who came to visit with city staff and have committed to helping us develop a wellness program. A wellness program, I think, is an idea whose time has come for our city. It's about 81% of large businesses, those businesses that have more than 50 employees, have instituted a wellness program across the country. There's now a mountain of evidence showing the benefits of doing so. Obviously, we would have our work cut out for us with 4,300 employees. It would be different and on a much larger scale than many businesses, but I think we can do it, and I think we should do it. There are tremendous employee benefits that have been shown. Literally a couple hundred studies have been done on employee wellness programs for corporations and governments. They show increased energy and stamina, which leads to increased productivity. Employees are better able to control and deal with stress, decrease absenteeism, improve morale and self-esteem, and a sense of community. And for the employer, it's easier to recruit and retain healthy employees. There's improved employee relations and morale, and there's decreased workers' compensation and disability management claims. And then it just makes great business sense. I mean, there are so many studies that show return of investment, and the numbers will vary, but basically if you spend $1, the studies will show somewhere between $1.50 in return and decreased premiums to $5.50. But nobody's showing that they lost money, that they got less in less premiums. We spend about $70 million in health insurance for our employees. Health costs are increasing about 6% per year, so that's going to increase. If we could just stay where we are, we would save a tremendous amount of money. And I think a wellness program is a way to do that. The firefighters, I understand, have made good progress. They're working. They've now developed a wellness program. I understand that their wellness program will come online in January. There's no reason for us to do that independently. We can work together. We can have economies of scale. And we can share ideas with one another and develop our wellness programs together. It was clear from our meeting that two things have to happen. One is that for it to work, the employees of the City of Oklahoma City have to get involved and let us know what it is you'd like to see in a wellness program. You have to have an investment in it. I know from the studies what we'll want. It's smoking and obesity. That's where we get our tremendous return on investment, is if we can make inroads there. But for employees, it may be ergonomics, from sitting in front of a computer all day. It may be a fitness center. It may be aerobics class, whatever. I think that interest survey will be presented, and we just need to know from the employees what it is, what's your highest priority. And then there will be a health risk appraisal, which will be voluntary. Basically, everybody that does a wellness program, that's kind of the first step, is employees, and it would be voluntary, but we would hope that you would participate and let us know what, it just reviews personal lifestyle practices, such as smoking, seatbelt use, and exercise. Confidentiality would be at a premium, but by volunteering and filling out that health risk assessment, it helps us understand what we need to put into a wellness program. We're not particularly concerned who is and isn't wearing their seatbelt, but it just helps us understand where we need to concentrate our resources. We can do it, but we really need the involvement of city employees, and that's what I'm asking for. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman McAtee?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to thank the retired firefighters, George Fina, and the rest of the retired firefighters for the hospitality showed my wife and I last night at their annual Christmas party. That's always a great event. That's a great organization that really comes together and tries to minister to the needs of our retired firefighters and their families. And I'd like to also congratulate the Windsor Hills Neighborhood Association for a great Christmas party Saturday morning, very well attended, and thank the theater in Windsor Hills Shopping Center for making it available for us to have that meeting. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilman White? Councilman Greenwell?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to mention, we had a great time last Friday at the new South Oklahoma City Library on a South Pennsylvania 134th Street. It was great to see all the various organizations that came together to help get the library open. And then secondly, I had a great time last week at the Greater Oklahoma City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Gala and appreciate the invitation to that event. Thank you.
Councilman Kelly?
Mayor, I just have an issue that is it's already a public notice that is in reference to a meeting tomorrow evening here at the City Council involving the tax credit program, and there was a citizens meeting to get an opportunity to hear their input as it relates to this project at 2100 Northeast Grand Boulevard. My concern is that unbeknownst to me, in which I had previously announced this in another venue and forum, and I come here on Monday and I realize that trying to invite people to downtown Oklahoma City at 6 o'clock in the evening with all of the recent construction, that some of it just started, seems like on Monday morning or late Saturday evening or Friday evening, if it was possible to either put out another notice to see if we could possibly look for a different location as it relates to this. I think if this would have been thought out in a more concerned way, the project itself is at 2100 Northeast Grand Boulevard. The only people that will have any direct or indirect effect in reference to whatever happens in this project are those citizens who live in the northeast quadrant of Oklahoma City. And we have the MetroTech, which we have had the opportunity to utilize on several other occasions as it relates to issues within that geographical part of the city. And I doubt very seriously if we'll have a handful of people here knowing what the traffic and knowing what the construction issues is downtown, because actually, you know, we told people that they park directly south of City Hall, but, you know, I don't know how you tell them to get to that parking lot now. You know, I've been coming down here since 20 years, and I had a hard time trying to figure it out. And I don't know. I just feel bad about the fact that this has already been publicly announced, and at the same time, you know, I know it's a very important issue. Councilman Ryan and Councilman McAtee and myself serve on the committee, and we have set aside the time to address that issue for the citizens and to hear their concerns. So,
Councilman, let's see if we can take a look at that issue this morning and see if we can either cancel it and have a different meeting, or whether we can have even a supplemental meeting and have that one and then maybe another one out there and see what our options are. So we'll get with you after the meeting.
I appreciate it, sir.
Councilman McAtee?
Jim, in doing that, I was taken off of that committee, I believe. Could you get a reading on that?
No, we kept you.
Once on, you don't get
I
off.
wasn't planning on being there because I was told that I wasn't on that committee anymore. So I appreciate the publicity, Skip, and we need some clarification. Thank you.
We'll check into that.
Great. Councilman Ryan?
I serve as chairman of that Conversation Neighborhood Conservation Committee, and I have no objection with either postponing or changing the venue. The second thing is I want to heartily support the comments that Councilman Shadid made about our health wellness program. And we, I think as a first step, need to review the opportunities that are available in our current plans, and perhaps a little bit more management emphasis would increase the participation, and we could accomplish a lot of what Councilman Shadid wants to accomplish. But I think it's a very worthwhile objective. But I think we need to start with what we've got and see if it needs to be modified. And if it's not, I think there's some good things in it. It's just we need to encourage our employees. Maybe there's some incentives we could provide to encourage people to participate in those plans.
Yeah, if I can comment on that. I was also attended the meeting that Councilman Shadid had called and put together. Councilman White was there, and some others, and it was a great meeting. And there's a couple of things that I think we need to do. We do have a pretty aggressive health package. I'm not sure all of our employees are aware of all the benefits that are out there. So I think, one, we need to do a better job of identifying what is in our existing package. And of course, that's different because we have multiple health care plans. We've got the indemnity plan, we have HMOs, and other options that are out there, and they all offer a little bit different things. But we still have a pretty broad package out there. I think we should do a better job of highlighting and illustrating those issues. And then see what we've got, and then from that point, go forward and identify the areas. And I think Councilman Shadid was right on. We need to identify what the employees would like to see and what they want to embrace. But we also need to take a look at what our goals and objectives are, whether it's obesity and smoking, as you highlighted, and put some emphasis in that area. I think it should be both. I think we need to take a look at what the employees are looking for to fill their personal voids, but also take a look at what we can do to make this a healthier environment and save some money in the long run.
I sat in on that session that Councilman Shadid called, and I would tell you there are two things that I was most impressed with. One, the horsepower that showed up. I mean, you had Terry White there. I mean, you had people that are in a position that make they're difference makers in the health business in the state. There were a lot of people like that. I mentioned Terry because I know her real well. But the other thing is exactly what Jim said. As we sat and talked about what Oklahoma City offered, I was amazed at the variety of things that we offered that I didn't have any idea that we had in our package. And I suspect there are a lot of employees that are in that same boat that don't.
An example of that would be our employee assistance plan that's out there, which is a confidential plan that's out there to meet employees' needs. And as they asked about that, and the more we explained about what we have a very comprehensive employee assistance plan that's available, that I don't know if all our employees know about the breadth of that plan.
Thank you. City manager reports.
We have a couple this morning. I think we'd like to start with Tim O'Toole. Tim is joining us from the fairgrounds to give us an update. Tim comes down occasionally and shares with us some of the improvements and activities that are going on at the fairgrounds. So Tim, thanks for coming down.
Thank you. Thank you. Morning, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of council. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to bring you up to date on what we've done this year in 2011 and then give you a picture of the future. Is this okay? This year, as far as the hotel motel projects, we had two projects that we completed this year. One was for the Cox Pavilion, which you may recall was the affectionately known as the old Bubble Building, and that was the actual first project that we did under the hotel motel taxes projects back in 2005. And this year we went in and updated the interior air circulation as well as the heating and air conditioning in that building. It's a 70,000 square foot exhibit space that has become very popular and is really our number one exhibit building on the grounds right now. And then our feeding bedding operation, which had been located on the east side of the Equine property along Gordon Cooper Boulevard in front of Barns 4 and 5, of which later on this morning we're opening the bids to complete the construction of Barns 4 and 5. So it was necessary to relocate that and move it to the west side of the property where our old maintenance facility was that we had relocated some time ago to the facility on Reno we acquired. So those are our two major projects this year that we completed a little right at $2.5 million. That's interior of the circulation of the fans that are in there. We have adopted these fans all throughout the building. They have a rather descriptive actual name to them that the manufacturer used, but I won't use that today. But they've been very helpful for us. They're tremendous assets to the facilities and everywhere. We added those to the Cox Pavilion and also to the Performance Arena on the west side of the facility. This is the exterior of the new air conditioning units that went into the Cox Pavilion, and that was actually completed by September 1. This is also just another shot of those units. And then we have, this is the feeding and bedding facility on the west side of the property that totally renovated. We took an existing structure, took it down to the shell, reinforced the steel, and totally renovated that project. And it's a tremendous asset to us with the summer drought. We stockpile hay and feed for our fall horse show customers when they're here. And this availability of this facility definitely assisted us in being able to do that. We used to have to store about 30% of our inventory outside, and that we'd start that in early October and run through the winter months, and now we don't have to do that. We're able to keep everything inside, and then we fill orders and service our customers out of this building during the horse show business. It's very popular, been very well received this fall. This is a summary of the total events of what we had this year. What we call the marquee events are actually, that's basically all of the approximately 16 horse shows that we do every year, and then the year-round events are all the things that go on during the course of the year, which of course includes the annual state fair. So we had a good year. We had a little over 2.4 million people visited the property. It's estimated the property generated about 241,000 hotel room nights, a little over $352 million in direct spending, and local sales tax revenues a little in excess of $16 million. Those, as far as a return on investment, when we started the hotel motel project, the direct spending number was somewhere in the area of about $275 million, and it's continually grown every year as we've gone through the projects and been able to not only retain our business, which was our first goal, but also assist our shows in growing. And then I have and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, but we do have a brief video here that gives you a look at the future, if you will, of what the property will be like when we complete maps. Actually, there's a few other elements that I'll describe to you as we go through here. This video starts with us entering the property from Gate 9 on the north end. On the right, you'll see the old barns 4 and 5, and then they evolve into what they will look like when the new construction is done, and then it takes us down Gordon Cooper. That's our cafe and sales facility in the center, Barn 3, and then you look back and see the Cox Pavilion over there. And then now we're heading back south down Equine Alley past the Super Barn. On the left, you'll see the shadow of the Travel and Transportation building. On the right, the Norick Arena. And then as the Travel and Transportation goes away, you see the evolution of our MAPS 3 project, the Expo Hall facility. This is walking from the arena towards the facility, swinging around to the north of the facility. We're moving out east towards May Avenue. This is a large 300,000 flat floor space facility that we can subdivide into smaller meeting spaces when necessary. We're now looking back to the west, and what you'll notice as we swing around here, we use Gordon Cooper as our boundary, and it gives us a true back of the house for a loading and unloading area for our shows. We're now coming up north up May Avenue. This is our existing Gate 5 entrance right there, the first one. You see the new parking and the area. This is a proposed center area that would come in. There's where the carnival would be for the state fair. Or we'd swing it around in front of the building. There's some additional gating areas now. And then we're out on the north side of the property with the new building to the south. And I think we have a little artistic element here that shows us what the property might look like with the completed building based on our current schedule for opening night of the, I believe it's now the 2015 State Fair. So that's where we'll be at the end of our MAPS project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, or anybody might have anything.
Your Honor, I have a question. Tim, I had an opportunity to go out and see a photo exhibit in the old Oklahoma City Art Museum building out there, the big round building. Do you have plans to do anything with that building?
Well, that is a separate, that is the only piece of property. You're talking about the City Arts Center?
Yes.
Yes. That property is under a separate lease with the City of Oklahoma City. It's a separate foundation. I believe 501c3 operates that property. They'll be there as long as they want to be there. I know they've looked at future plans and relocation to other areas, but any of the improvements that we do on the property, the first phase of MAPS and all that, will be consulting with them to move them, but their facility itself is not included in any of our capital allocations at this time. They've had a separate lease for, I think, 40-some years out there under an entirely different agreement.
I'd like to talk to the city manager sometime when he has about that building condition.
Yes.
Any other questions? Gary?
Well, not a question, but just a comment. And I made this comment to Tim earlier this morning. I don't know if you saw the news this weekend. They ran the story a couple of times. There was a lady from Australia who attended the Reining Horse show that was here. And the story was about her and her difficult medical difficulties and so on that she had gone through. But I thought it really highlighted the Reining Horse show here and the international part of it. And Tim, you told me what percentage of that show is international now?
Well, they as an organization, as a national organization, a little over 20% of their registration is from outside the United States. So there literally were days that you could go sit in the cafe and the majority of the conversation was not being conducted in English. Yeah, that's a huge huge international representation.
We lose sight sometimes of how large the expanse of how we affect people in the equine industry is here in Oklahoma City, and I thought it was a great example of that.
Yes, we get a tremendous amount of international visitors, both for the AQHA World Show as well as the National Reining Horse Show.
One of the things that I think is different from what Tim showed you this morning than what you see from other projects that are out there, for example, you're seeing some things on TV about the American Indian Cultural Center, which is a great project and going to be a good addition to Oklahoma City, but it's what we're hoping to do, and it's not a funded project. What Tim is bringing you today is something that will be, because it's a funded project, and everything out there, there's nothing else that needs to be done to come up with funding on that project. It's in place, and it will happen. It's just a matter of going down and getting it done in the time frame that we had before us. You know, a lot of people have great ideas and great visions and such that never come to fruition because they're never funded. Not saying that will be the case with the American Native Cultural Center, but there's a lot of, you know, there's not a shortage of good ideas. This is actually concrete stuff that will occur, and it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when as we go forward with programs.
It's certainly exciting, Tim, to see how things have evolved out there over a reasonably short period of time. And it's thrilling to see what it will look like at the end of 2015.
We were obviously grateful to the citizens for their trust and for all the leadership of the city, this council in particular. We have actually completed 19 projects at a cost of a little over $75 million since January 1, 2005.
We can certainly see in the growth of everything from visitors to dollars spent to sales tax collections what a great return that is for the city and for the citizens. So thank you for all you're doing out there.
With pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Your Honor, if I could, Tim, you said the 300,000 square foot new exhibition building.
Yes, sir.
Which can be subdivided up. Our citizens who go to shows out there all the time, the different expositions, the local shows, when that building is done, they will be benefactors, will they not, by being able to go into that new facility for those shows?
Absolutely.
I think that's a point that also needs to be made, because that supposedly information was that the fairgrounds is the most visited facility of any facility in Oklahoma as far as Oklahoma residents go into. So there'll be a tremendous benefit to them as ambiance and when that's done.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And the benefit, according to my wife, is that it'll all be under one roof. You won't have to go to 5 different buildings for a Fair of the Heart or whatever it is.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. We appreciate you coming down. We also have a presentation on our quarterly investment report.
We do. Bob Ponkill is here this morning. Bob's our city treasurer and here to talk to us about our quarterly investment report.
I'll let us get situated with our handouts and such before I get started. I've been asked to brief you this morning on the quarterly investment report for the quarter ended September the 30th. What you have before you is a revised quarterly report. We wanted to move from the previous version that we presented to council, which was more of a narrative version, to a more charts and graphs type presentation. The report itself covers a variety of different areas within our investment operations, and hopefully will provide you at a glance an overview of the investment activities. Just briefly, the report itself, Exhibit 1 will cover the activities and basically will tell you the different areas that, for which we invest. Exhibit 2 covers the type of securities that we invest in. And again, this is in the actual report that you have that's been provided in your packet. And I'll touch on a few of these schedules and some of this information in my presentation. Exhibit 3 covers the holdings and the maturity levels that we currently invest in. Exhibit 4 touches on the portfolio yield in comparison to the benchmark that we have established for the portfolio and within our investment policy. Exhibit 5 touches on the general fund earnings year to date. And then the last portion of the report touches, again, just provides you some economic information as to what was going on as of September 30th. The presentation this morning will cover, in addition to the various aspects of the report, we'll touch on the concepts and the objectives of the investment strategy itself that we practice within the City Treasurer's Office. Of course, our primary objectives, as they're outlined within the investment policy, are safety, liquidity, and achieving a market rate of return. Now, what exactly does all that mean? Basically, it means that when we invest for the city, that we can only invest in the safest forms of types of investments. We also have to ensure that we have funds available when they're needed, whether it be for payroll, for capital projects, whatever. And finally, we're expected to achieve a market rate of return. What that means is that the return that we achieve for the portfolio should be comparable to what's being earned throughout the bond market. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. This slide represents a very basic economic and investment concept, and basically that means that if you're investing in very low-risk investments, you can expect a fairly low return. That's the trade-off. Some of the restrictions that we have in regard to our investment process is that we're restricted to investing in 5 years or less, very short term. That's one item that we tend to have to deal with. Of course, we do invest in the most safe forms of investments, some of these being the U.S. Treasuries, government-sponsored entities. Those are your Fannie Mae's, Freddie Mac's, Federal Home Loan Banks. And then, of course, our overnight options, the funds that we invest for liquidity purposes, have to follow the same risk requirements. They can only be in very low-risk investments. Next slide. Now, obviously, within the market that we exist in currently, we have a number of challenges. One of those being, you've probably seen how the stock market affects the bond markets. When investors are feeling bold, they'll go out and invest in the stock market. Vice versa, when they have concerns with the economy, they'll turn around and sell their stocks and invest in treasuries. That impacts what we're doing on a daily basis. What the Federal Reserve does has a tremendous impact on our investments. A lot of what we do in regard to those short-term investments are driven by short-term rates. Fed funds rate, as you're probably aware, is at an all-time low and has been for going on 2 years now. Recently, the Federal Open Market Committee announced that they don't intend to begin raising rates for probably another couple of years. So we're probably going to be in this same environment for quite some time. Federal government budget. You probably experienced this as we did, everything that happened back this past August. The federal government having difficulty coming to terms on the budget. That, of course, brought in a lot of concern within the bond market, particularly in regard to treasuries and other U.S. obligations. There's a lot of talk about, is the U.S. government going to be able to meet its obligations? Is there going to be a default, that sort of thing? And that subsequently had an impact on the bond ratings when Standard & Poor's came in a little after that and lowered the bond ratings on U.S. obligations. Cash flow requirements, as I'd mentioned a little earlier, has a very big impact on what we do. We have to, in addition to funding our daily operations, being it our servicing our debt, paying payroll, paying our vendors. We also have to deal with a high level of construction projects. You probably can, as Councilman had mentioned earlier, a lot of construction going on, whether it be the Project 180, whether it be our bond construction, whether it be the Match for Kids program. We have to have funds available for those projects as they're being completed. So that prevents us from taking our money out too long. And certainly the economy itself. The longer the existing economy drags on, the less likely we're going to see any kind of opportunity for those interest rates to begin rising. This is just a snapshot of the last 5 years and the activity within the portfolio. As you can see, in 2007, we were managing a portfolio of $850 million, and we achieved earnings that year just short of $40 million, a decent job. But you can also see that our annualized yield for that year was just under 5%. Now, if you flash forward to the most recent fiscal year ended 2011, we're managing just over $1 billion at this point. And we were able to achieve just a little over $10 million for the year. Again, that's a direct reflection of the rates, the yields that we're earning on the portfolio. You can see that the annualized yield in 2011 was less than a quarter of what they were back in 2007. That's just the market that we're dealing with at this point in time. Now, a good thing, I guess if you can call it a good thing, is that we are seeing some leveling out of the decrease in earnings within the portfolio. We think that we've hit or are pretty close to the bottom, put it that way. So the 1% earnings that we've achieved this past year, we can expect to remain hopefully in that area as we move forward. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of the type of market we're dealing in, again, things fluctuate from day to day. I'm sure that you hear on the news good news and bad news. A lot of bad news recently in regard to the what's going on over in Europe. But just to give you an idea of how things changed and how quickly they changed, just in the past week or so, we've had some of these updates to those economic information that I provided in the report. We had a big surge in consumer confidence just in this past November. Consumers started feeling a bit better about how the economy was looking. But at the same time, the GDP estimates for the remainder of the year were being pushed downward. Again, the thought there was, things may not be looking as well as we thought earlier, so we're going to push down our projections. At the same time, retail sales in November beat analyst projections. We probably all heard about the Black Friday sales and how they surpassed all previous records. That's a good thing. The Congressional Super Committee failed to meet its deadline. Again, what the federal government does in relation to the type of investments that we invest in certainly has a significant impact. Throws a lot more concerns into the Treasury markets. And a bit of good news from last week, the unemployment fell from previously being over 9% to 8.6% last week. I think that was a little surprise to a lot of folks. Again, it kind of tends to show that there's a lot of volatility and fluctuation in the economy right now.
Bob, you're just highlighting domestic events. There are worldwide events that also are both positive and negative effect.
Exactly. Next slide, please. This slide here is just an example of how volatile the market is at this point. This is just November, what the stock market experienced in November alone. So you can see earlier in the month, the stock market was well over 12,000. Towards the end of the month, it fell to just over 11,000. That's a huge drop in regard to stock market terms. Now, the reason for that, of course, is what Jim just mentioned. and that's the European crisis. There's a lot of concerns in the market as to what's going on, what's going to go on, and how that's going to affect us as we move forward. But as you can see with some of the positive indicators, by the end of November, the stock market was back up again over 12,000. Again, just a sign of how volatile things are right now. One of the things that we've done this past year is we retained PFM Asset Management as the city's investment advisor. We've divided the city's portfolio between city staff and PFM, and we'll probably retain that structure throughout the remainder of this fiscal year. And we're doing that just so we can compare performance between how we manage the portfolio and what PFM might do from their perspective. What we're expecting from PFM is a more active form of management. They'll be seeking value opportunities along the yield curve, but at the same time, they still have to comply with the same policy requirements that we do in regard to safety and liquidity. We at the city will continue to use a very conservative investment style, a very passive form of management. Basically, it's a buy and hold type strategy, and we'll continue to ladder our investments just as we've always done to meet those obligations that we have on a day-to-day basis. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that in our relationship with PFM, we do require that any recommendations that they make, any changes that they make in relation to the portfolio have to be approved by the city treasurer's office. That ensures that we're maintaining our compliance with not only our investment policy, but also state statutes. As you can see in looking at the report itself and some of the discussions that we've just gone through, we're certainly in a volatile top market, and there's been downward pressure on the rates that we can achieve with the portfolio itself. Exhibit 4 within your reports does show, and I do want to make sure that we do point this out. Again, we're required to maintain a market rate of return. We compare our performance to the Merrill Lynch U.S. Treasury 0 to 3 year index, and when compared to that, we've maintained well above what the index reflects for the past year. So we've done our job. It just happens to be a very difficult market at this point in time. We'll continue to maintain the safety of the portfolio and continue to seek those returns. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah. Can I,
Yes, certainly. Go ahead.
can you tell me what's the management fee for PFM?
It ranges up to 8 basis points. And I'm sure that your next question will be, well, what are we expecting back from them? Estimates are from between 20 and 30 basis points, so net. It's not going to be a huge jump in earnings, but there will be some additional earnings from using PFM.
So we're doing a trial to the end of the year and then we reevaluate, or how?
That's our intent, is to basically do a comparison. What we've asked them to do is, you have to pay for yourself. And that's what we're going to be reviewing as we move through the year, to make sure that their performance exceeds, what it costs to retain them.
Okay. Let me ask a question. Maybe this is more for Jim, but it's just so painful to have money earning 1% when you're paying debt at 5.5%. I mean, is there you've got $200 million that are being held in investments that are at least 2 years or longer. Is there any way that debt can be paid down? I mean, it seems like the safest, the most guaranteed return on investment, you get 5.5%.
The answer is no. Most of those are in restricted accounts with restricted purposes to do so. Now, one of the things we are trying to do is because of the lower interest rates, we're doing a refunding in the next few weeks, and we will be getting our interest rate on some of our existing debt down. But no, we've got to maintain the integrity of the segregation of our funds. And there are for example, there are certain revenues that are, this is a combined portfolio, so there are investments off the water utilities, there are investments off the airports, there's investments off of Maps for Kids or the Maps for Kids, or Maps for Use Tax, and you can't take those dollars and pay off debt on another issue. Overall, we have a fairly low debt burden within the city, but you are correct, we are paying higher interest rates on that than what we're earning, but that's always the case. Just right now, it's
There's no way to, in effect, loan money to yourself to pay off that 5.5%.
Well, I don't know how we do that, Kenny.
I don't know how you do that.
Okay. Okay.
All righty. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here.
You bet.
It's a tough climate to be working in. City Manager?
Well, it is a tough market, although when we do go to the market, it's really inexpensive. The commercial paper we're getting from the Water Trust right now is under 1% that we're paying. There are some. It's a double-edged sword as you go out there. It depends if you're it's good news or bad news, whether you're borrowing money or whether you're investing money. I do want to also highlight the sales tax collections for November. They were pretty strong. It was only a small percent over the prior year, but we're 4.8% over target. A year ago was a very strong month for us, and we're continuing that trend this year. Year to date, we're about $2.7 million over target, so we feel good about where we're sitting. But the variables are still out there. It's everything that Bob just talked about on the investments, and the risks in the market are also what affects our sales tax revenues. So we're pretty strong right now, but it's a volatile time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we have a number of, thank you, Craig. We have a number of citizens to be heard. The first issue appears to be Minnis Lake Pool, and I'd like to ask everybody that comes forward to please be respectful of the time. We'd like to give everybody about 3 minutes to speak, and if you would try to bring up unique points rather than just repeat what we've heard over and over again. So those are kind of the ground rules. Michael Stevenson, you'd like to come forward, and we'll need your name and address for the record, please, Michael.
My name is Michael Stevenson. I live at 5331 Stillwell, Oklahoma City. We have one pool out our district, and that's Minnie Lane. And you plan on bulldozing it at a cost of $291,000. The pool costs, you say, $33,000 a year to operate. It would take, 8 years for the cost to balance out what you'd use to bulldoze it for. There are no other pools out that way. Talked on their city council priorities. It says to preserve and grow the civilians' confidence and trust in the city government, focus on the infrastructure and development, increase the effectiveness of public transportation, and enhance the quality of life. I don't see how destroying the one swimming pool in my neighborhood is going to do any of those things. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down, Michael. Alan Thompson. And Mr. Thompson, again, we need your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Alan Thompson, and I live at 12729 Northeast 36th Street, Oklahoma City. I started to say Spencer, but it's Oklahoma City. And I live approximately 25 steps from Minnis Lake Park. Matter of fact, I have the honor of being present when that park was donated to the city of Oklahoma City by Miss Minnis, because at the same time my mother was the founder of Mary Mahoney Medical Center, Daisy Mitchell. And I've swum in that pool. The pool that you're talking about closing, we've had a lot of closures out there that directly affected the quality of life. I don't know how much it costs to maintain. I don't know how much it costs to bulldoze it over. But the cost and the impact that it will have on that community far exceeds that. We just lost, this is something we have to take up with Oklahoma City Public Schools. We just lost Parker Elementary. They combined that with Spencer, but we still have Mary Mahoney, the same people. This is not just for out there in that area. That is the only pool, public pool, between Broadway and Hiwassee, northeast of Broadway. And from what I understand, I swim, that's where I go swim, matter of fact. And I'll have a problem out there in a water park running through the sprinklers. And I don't intend to do that. So we have to figure out what happened and what we can do. And that's why we're coming before the council. This has no reflection on Mr. Kelly over there. We're coming to the council to find out what happened, how this slipped through the crack. We thought this was resolved back in 2000. But this is not an indictment against the city. A lot of it is our fault. Because we should have been, like we sitting here today, whenever this issue came up, we should have been here to talk with you guys and address it. So what we're coming before the council as a whole and asking you to help us save Minutes Lake.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Janice Timberlane.
Good morning. Janice Timberlake. I'd like to
Janice,
say...
we'll need your address also for the record, please.
Pardon me?
We need your address as well for the record, please.
Okay, 9801 Northeast 43rd Street, Spencer, Oklahoma.
Thank you.
I'm a long-life Spencer resident, and when I got married, my husband and I, he also was Spencer, and we swam there, taught my children there, grandchildren, and I have a 12-year-old great-grandchild, and I taught her to swim there. And it was devastating when I heard that they were going to tear the pool down because I just couldn't see it. And when my husband died, February of 2010, he swam there, and it just was so hard. It's hard for me to deal with it because my children says, well, Mom, you didn't know? I said, I had no idea they were going to tear the pool down because I've been going through so much with his death after 26 years, and then my mother in January of this year. So I didn't know what was going on until I got a call. They're going to tear the pool down. And so now here I am, because I'm sorry I didn't jump in there when it was going on because I didn't know. But I do know now, and I think it's devastating to know that this is going to happen. Like I said, 4 generations, and it's really rough for me to deal with. That's why I'm here in the cold. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down and bringing us some Christmas cheer. That looks really cute. Adrian Anderson.
Good morning, Adrian Anderson. I live at 4412 Shady Nook Way, Spencer, Oklahoma. I come representing the kids of the Spencer community. I work at Star Spencer High School. By the way, I grew up in the neighborhood that services the pool, and they wish, well, a few of them wish they can be here today. Of course, they got to be in school, so I want to come and speak on their behalf. That's the only thing, including the center and the gym, that they have, and they look forward to that every summer. It also employs, I know for a fact, a couple of students that go to Star Spencer High School. So not only that it provides recreation, it also provides job opportunities for our kids. They look towards that. They don't, I mean, right now we have a lack of limited resources already that we're working with. And these kids need to be active. I work with them every day, and trust me, we need something for the kids to do, especially when in the summertime, when you have that time, you're not in school every day. We need them to be active. So, for one, I want to pose the question of, what's the benefit of closing it, and why, why are we wanting to close it when we stress? I've been into these meetings before, the last couple years, and we've always came. Now, it may be just few in number, but we speak for the half of the community that nobody approves of this, nobody wants this, and I believe we state good reason why. And so, I mean, for the most things, for the kids, if it were benefiting, people are using it, why would we shut it down? And then I've heard some of the calls, I'm not detailed on that, but it sounds like to me it doesn't make sense as far as a means to an end if we're trying to close the pool. So I do come, I want to speak on behalf of the kids. They want it, they use it. I mean, it was devastating. It's been there since I was a kid, and I know it's been there before then. That's at least 20 years. And I want to just say that that's going to affect a lot of kids' lives. They look forward to it. They don't have the transportation. They don't have the resources to get to maybe regional or the funds, or to, like the gentleman said, to another pool that's maybe 15, 20 minutes away. They don't have the resource to get there. This is something they can go to. This is something that's easy to access. So I just want to say, please think about our community. Please think about our children, because that's what this is about. And I know that if it starts with the pool, then it's going to begin. It's going to be the center next, and it looks like it's just going to be taking everything out there that we have. It's going to be taken away from us. I've just, you know, I'm not saying I see in the future and that's going to guarantee happen, but we know that that's a possibility. First the pool, then the gym, and then so forth. So please think about that. And I just hope why, you know, what's the real benefit of closing the pool? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian, for coming down. Next, we have Vivian Miller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Vivian Miller, 5012 North Woodland, Spencer, Oklahoma. I own 3 pieces of property out in the Spencer area. I'm the owner and operator of Christian Post Park on 36 and Post Road. In that particular area, because I love the area, I grew up in the area. As a matter of fact, I was born and raised at 12701 Northeast 36th Street, right across from Menace Lakeview Port. So I'm very much aware of that area. I started the port because it wasn't anything out in that area for our kids. And I started doing the park, and the kids started coming playing ball there, doing the swing sets and stuff, because people don't invest in that community. I'm a graduate of Dungy High School, which was closed 30-some years ago, when that community died because that community went out and left. We didn't know about that. They was making all of these here plans in 2000, I think they said, 2000, when they informed the community that the pool was going to be closed, because the people had started leaving that area. But because of my park there, people have started coming back to that community, building nice homes out there. So we're trying to keep that growth going out there. I see you just had somebody from the State Fair talking about the development that's going to happen in 2015 with all the improvements of the fair. We want the same thing out in the greater Fort Northeast area. We want to be in on the planning. We want to start inviting Councilman Skip Kelly out to the different things that we're doing out there, so we can be a part of these things that we don't know. It don't blindside us at the last minute. So we're very concerned about it. Menace Pool is ran by a well, so that's not costing the city money for water. So what's the benefit of closing that pool? Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian, for coming down. William Allensworth.
Good morning. I'd like to thank the council for allowing us to come out and say how we feel about the present situation that's going on out in Dungy. Actually, I live at 713 Southwest 153rd, but I inherited my father's house, which is 12720 Northeast 37, where I grew up. I think one of the most important factors that we're not looking at is that the water park would benefit the younger kids, probably 13 and under. But then what do you do with the kids that are 13 and up? As you know, with the closing of the school and the shipping of the kids, a lot of the kids out there find themselves loitering, which is 13 and older. And I think if you destroy that pool and put that water system in there, the water park in there, that's what's going to continue to happen. That's going to grow even more to where you're going to have kids with nothing to do for the summer. 2 months is a long time for kids from 15 to 18. And they need that 2 months to be able to, if it's a place for them to go hang out, which is a swimming pool, which keeps them from using drugs and alcohol and things like that, then that's a positive. That's a positive, because that's 2 months that they don't have to be in a juvenile detention center. There's 2 months that those that may be certified as adult do not go into our prison system, which also saves our whole state money. So I think by saving that pool may benefit us in the long run, and I think that's the bigger picture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, William, for coming to share that with us today. Garland Pruitt.
Good morning.
Good morning. Sir,
My
we need
address
your
is
name and-
952 North XXX Road, Choctaw, Garland Pruitt. I'm coming speaking on behalf of the community in general. I find it amazing how we come to the city council meeting, we sit here, and we hear all of the grand proposals that are happening in the process, speaking futuristically. I was listening, and all of the comments and the accolades you were giving to just a moment ago about the health and wellness of the employees and the employers. This is the health and wellness of the community on the east side. He mentioned 13 and older. Josiah, how old are you? See this young man here? He might benefit from a sprinkler. I won't benefit from a sprinkler. Josiah can learn to swim in a swimming pool. I don't know much you're going to learn from the sprinkler. We can turn a water hose on at home. Your help is needed in possibly having an injunction of any form to address the issue of the need to help the community. I don't know who made the decision. We've been told when the decision was made, but today is a new day, and we're thinking progressively. We're thinking forward, moving forward. Whatever needs to be done or considered or put in place to rescind that particular issue needs to be thought about, need to be talked about. Each and every one of us in here can benefit from a swimming pool. One of the best health programs you can have is swimming. Every area of your body is affected. The sprinkler in the future, city council, I know this is a thing that's going around. Sprinklers are not a benefit. They only benefit if they don't have any form of water or recreation in those particular parks at all. But to reverse and take a pool and turn it into a sprinkler don't make common sense. It does not make common sense. So do consider that in the future when you start taking these sprinklers wherever they're not at this particular time, as far as replacing a swimming pool. Think about your kids or your grandkids or kids to come. That's who will benefit from the pool being there. Thank you.
Thank you, Garland, very much. John Hutchinson.
I'm a little new at this. Good morning and Merry Christmas.
Sir, we need your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing.
We need your name and address for the record.
John Hutchison, 2609 Northwest 158th Street, Oklahoma City. I'm here about an issue that's been discussed several times, but let me say that I was born and raised in Oklahoma City. I started a business when I was 20 years old. I kept that business for 40 years, and I retired in '96. After having that business 40 years, paying my taxes at 10th and Broadway, so I'm familiar with the downtown area. I'm familiar with a lot of people, and I guess I kind of represent the silent people that work and don't complain and do this and that. And when I go down to the Kerr Park and talk to these people down there that are protesting what mostly has already been done anyway, but by the same token, they come down here and they stay for months, 2 months. They're given extensions. They're babied around. And then when they don't get their way, they want to protest or resist being arrested, or they will be arrested. Then if they don't get their way, it turns to violence. And a couple of the people that I talked to down there, I only talked to 3, that's all I could get a hold of. But 2 of them are from out of state. One of them was a 24-year-old man that has a job here. And I asked him, I said, well, what are you down here for? And he said, well, we want jobs and we want this and we want that. And I said, well, if you'll get all your people together, I'll take them around to this city and I can find each and every one of them a job. And he said, well, you know, if you've been in jail or if you don't have an education, nobody will hire you. And I said, well, whose fault is that? And he said, well, it's not my fault. It's the other people's fault. And the point I'm trying to make here is, why do we let a handful of people dictate our ordinances? You let them get away with it for something that, if I did that, I'd wind up in jail. But these people sit down there and take up the Kerr Park that was designated for public use, but all these people that work, and they did this during the summer, when the people that work down there that can come down there and eat their lunch, and there was music at one time that I remember. But anyway, my question, I guess, is why that we allow them to go on and continue to give them a pass, so to speak.
So 3 minutes have passed, so we really appreciate you coming down very much and sharing your opinions with us.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. We have an executive session. Councilman, did you?
Just for my own reference, I mean, is there any way Wendell could address? Okay.
Sure, we can. Wendell, you want to come in and talk to us a little bit about Ennis Lakeview?
Yes, sir.
What the citizens are concerned about?
Okay. The City Council issued a contract on 11/15/11 to remove the pool at Ennis Lakeview and replace it with a spray ground. As many of you know, we've had great success with the spray grounds. We've closed 17 pools over the last few years. 4 of those pools are almost exactly the same as the pool at Ennis, and those were closed because over the years the attendance at the standard pools, standard being a pool smaller than an Olympic-sized but still a square tank design, had plummeted. If some of you will remember that as the attendance at those pools began to wane, we decided to try making them free. They were $1 to get in, and as a part of my budget some number of years back, we analyzed the income regarding, in comparison with the expense of running the pool or actually paying the cashier. We found that we were not bringing enough of those dollars in to pay the cashier, so we made the pools free. We had hoped that when that happened, we'd see a dramatic rise in the attendance, and we did not. So we've closed a number of pools, and we're about to remove Ennis and replace it with a spray ground. And as those spray grounds have been replacing pools, we've seen a dramatic increase in the attendance at those spray grounds over the pools. We've also seen that the activity level at the spray grounds, activity level related to exercise, is very intense. There's a lot of movement of the children at the spray grounds. We've also seen a clear phenomenon of more families coming to the spray grounds with their children, families or guardians coming with their children to the spray grounds, and having families at the park is always a positive thing for many reasons. But again, we've seen a dramatic increase in the attendance at the spray grounds over those old standard pools. So this is the next step in offering a community that now doesn't have a spray ground, and we would clearly anticipate that the attendance at that spray ground would increase dramatically over the attendance that we've had at Menace Lakeview Pool.
Mr. Shadid, the attendance has waned over the last few years in Menace. It's by a factor of almost 2.5, lower than any other pool that we have in our system. We tried to get some donations to help operate it after it was on the cutting block, and we're not very successful in doing that. The pool does need some work prior to the construction or the demolition and the building of the spray ground. Subsequent to that, the electrical gears and the pumps and such have been stripped from the facility at this point in time. There is a contract in place to do the demolition and to replace it with a spray ground that's been let, and the contractor is queued up and ready to go on that.
Ready.
Yes, may I just have just a quick question? Is there a gymnasium associated with the pool, I mean, in the same area?
In Menace Lakeview Park, there's a very nice recreation center, a full-size gymnasium, a performing stage. There's also a new playground in the park and a walking trail through the park. In the summer, when the spray ground is operating, that is at the same time, there's also a Play in the Park program, which brings in quite a few kids. We've experienced great successes where we've been able to couple the Play in the Park program with the spray ground. So yes, sir, it's a very well-equipped park.
But there are no intentions of taking any of those other items away, is
No,
there?
sir, there's not.
Thank you.
Wendell, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have a question.
Councilman Kelly.
As everyone here know, and I think some people kind of looked at me like I was the Lone Ranger in reference to advocating for swimming pools. And if you look back from the time that I came to the council, there was numerous reports and articles that seemed like the only thing that I knew to fight for was swimming pools. It's a very passionate part of me for several reasons. Swimming was an essential part of my life as a child. It was basically the babysitter for my mom, where she would drop my brother and I off at the swimming pool in the morning and pick us up in the evening after work. I have a son that was fortunate enough to be attracted to swimming to the level of Olympic competition within the YMCA and after that, and continues to be very passionate about the issue of swimming, and especially the need for the African American community today to have the exposure of swimming pools for our children, because when we look at it on a national level, it's probably one of the highest areas of recreational activity that you find, that people that don't know how to swim in round water, they drown. When we look at the issues that I have fought for, I came to this council and we had several pools that was on the list for closing. And I have to thank Sam Bowman, who was my second advocate that stood with me through the bitter end, and the rest of this council in finding ways to keep these pools open. We went to several of the corporate companies, and they was very kind to give assistance in keeping some of the pools open. Unfortunately, it got to the point where we could not continue to go back and ask for the same thing when there wasn't participation in the pools. And that's an unfortunate demise in any community, as one of the ladies stated clearly, that when people leave communities, obviously those issues of recreational activities go dormant, and there's no use, and they're not being used. And consequently, you still have to maintain, you still have to protect the safety and the welfare of those few individuals that may use the facility, which is a cost factor that has to be borne by the city. And I do understand that in geographical areas, sometimes it's difficult to make a true comparison between the numbers and the activities of a pool such as Northeast Pool. Unfortunately, Douglas Pool was closed, but Northeast Pool, and when you look at the density of the population in that particular area, and you compare the density of the population, and I hate to keep saying this when people say the far northeast Oklahoma City, it do have some identifiable streets and names, and so you say Spencer area, and you say Choctaw, and you look at some of the boundary lines in that area, and when you look at the population, clearly there's been a difference in the population. One only has to look at the last census report, and you can see where the movement of people have gone. But with that, in 2008, we fought to the bitter end to keep these pools open. And it was the understanding at that time that we would give another year in reference to the pools to see if the numbers would increase, and that everything could be, that we would try to do absolute free swimming, the offer of swim classes, and none of that was increased. I mean, there was no one that was participating in the swim class program. The issue of the numbers went down again, and now the city was back in the same situation that they were in when I came here, and that was, how do we continue to justify the cost factor when there is absolutely little use of the pools? And I'm not giving any reason why there's little use of the pools. I'm not the one that's their accountant. I accept what staff brings us in reference to the numbers, participation, and so forth and so on. And, I don't have any problem sitting down and discussing this, and if there's any other opportunities that can be looked at. I think that, I hear a whole lot about, Spencer. I wonder if it's even possible for there to be a partnership between the city and the city of Spencer in reference to some recreational programs that could balance out this issue of water activities. But at the same time, I think the real problem is, and the real issue is that we have to have a regional concept as it relates to, aquatics. And, I just think that the northeast quadrant of Oklahoma City is in a dire need of having a regional pool that would serve the needs of all the citizens, no matter where you happen to live. And I just think that's where we can solve a lot of these issues in reference to children having a full opportunity and families having a full opportunity to participate in outdoor water activities.
Can I just say, I just want to echo just 110% agreement with Skip, and just say that not only as a counselor, but as a physician, and I certainly don't apologize for advocating for health and wellness of our employees, but you're right that in terms of health and wellness for the citizens, I'm not sure that you can do better than aquatic therapy, than swimming. And I spend my whole medical practice saying that all day long. And it's not, we've emphasized the kids, but it's really the elderly is more important than the kids. When you take gravity out of the picture, you protect all these arthritic joints that we all get just by living as long as we're getting. There's nothing as healthy as aquatic therapy. We spend a lot of money on golf courses. A lot. We spend a lot of money and a lot of water on golf courses. I'm not sure that you get the same health benefit from that kind of investment as you get from pools. In fact, I don't know that you get, I don't mean that, but you don't get the same return on investment in terms of money as pools. We need to get these senior wellness centers built for that reason above all else. But the answer, I think, is if you don't have utilization, and I'm not sure exactly how we monitor attendance, but the answer, we've got to find a way, either with City County Health, the State Department of Health, we've got to find people to use the pools. So the answer is not if we don't have the attendance, we tear them down. I think somehow we've got to get the public, we've got to get the kids into the pools. For our obesity epidemic, I mean, it's like cheating. You get into the water and you're burning calories just trying to stay warm. You're losing weight before you even start exercising. So there's just nothing better for the health of our population if we can get everybody to use it.
Pete, did you have a comment?
Well, I think, I agree with everything everybody said about the utilization of swim pools, and that's why this pool, that it's been so long postponed this decision, is because the council time after time gave another opportunity for this pool to stay open to see if the attendance would come up. There were meetings about it. Councilman Kelly preached about it, literally, about the fact that the pool is not going to survive if people don't start using it. And year after year after year, you can go back, I don't know how many years, 6, 7 years, I know that we've been talking about it, or I've been here 6 now, and we've talked about it all 6 years that I've been here, and the attendance has dropped each year. So you can't, at some point in time, you have to say, the people that like it must really like it for you to be down here, but you're getting smaller in number in terms of using it. So you can't continue to justify that. Skip talks about not having a pool between Broadway and Hiawassee. I don't have a pool between Broadway and Shawnee in my area. And I don't because I know if I put a pool in, the utilization would not justify, the population's too scattered, it wouldn't justify doing it. Many of you gave your addresses as Spencer and Choctaw. Now, maybe you don't live in Spencer. Maybe that's your mailing address. Maybe you don't live in Choctaw. Maybe that's your mailing address. But assuming that you do, you're preaching to the wrong people. If you live in Spencer, you ought to be going to the Spencer City Council and asking them why they're not putting money into this operation. Or the Choctaw City Council and ask them why they're not putting money into this operation. This is an Oklahoma City function. And I'm assuming that most of you do live in Oklahoma City because I live in southeast Oklahoma City, and I know that for a long time my mailing address was Moore. I never used it because I didn't want anybody to think I actually lived in Moore. So I just didn't say that. I just always said Oklahoma City. But that's the point, the utilization of this, and the fact that it does, the support for it does come from a multiple group of cities, and no effort has been made at all for Spencer to step up or Choctaw to step up and say, we'll carry part of the load. That's what's happened. And Skip has fought this for 6 years now. Every year he's been able to convince us to, let's wait one more year and hopefully the attendance will come up. It's never happened, and so that's where we are. And you can't say you didn't know, because for 6 years I've seen groups like yours down here talking about saving this same pool. I mean, at some point the bell's going to ring. I mean, you can't just keep it on, keep it on, keep it on when the numbers just keep dropping and dropping and dropping. Now, I don't know, you have to come up here to talk.
I think everybody's had a chance to speak.
Well, I'm used to the Maps for Kids project, because, it was a little more structured. I was on that. But, Mr. White, I remember you too. And I remember coming here talking about this. Also, I remember the fact that you say that it dropped, but that's what's confusing us. We had a sign-in sheet, we had petitions, we had sign-in sheets. All summer, it showed, our sign-in sheet showed that we had 2,000 people to use that pool in 2 months. And if you go look on there, you're going to see my name on there too. Because what you're talking about is a change in demographics. You said this has been going on every year. But every year something has been taken out of our community. Every year. And the dynamics of the whole situation is, based on the amount of people that's out there in that area, if we have 2,000 people that use that pool in 2 months, where you can't compare us to an inner city or urban environment, saying that, okay, but normally it's 6,000. Because 2,000 out there is 6,000 in the urban city. And once again,
Mr. Thompson.
Once again, Mr. Kelly.
I don't want to get in a situation where you and I are arguing about it, but I tell you, you choose to live in a rural area, as I do, because you like the things that are in a rural area. The idea that you move to a rural area and then you expect the same amenities that you have in an urban area is beyond me. That is beyond me. I don't understand that. I don't have that. I live in an area like that. We don't have gyms and parks.
Well, I ain't going to go back to Crystal Lake, which used to be a water hole over there that I used to swim in when we were a kid.
Right.
And the thing is, all of Oklahoma, when it started out, was a rural area. So that's flawed.
Well, I understand.
Mr. Thompson, thank you very much for coming down. We appreciate everybody's input in the
Help us
conversation.
get through this, please. Help us save our pool. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you very much for coming down. We have executive session now.
All right.